Hello and welcome to Rogues Only's spoiler review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm Erickson, and if you haven't seen this movie yet, now is the time to turn off whatever device you're watching this video on, because we're going to delve right into plot details, character development, all that stuff you don't want to hear if you haven't seen this movie, so now's the time to turn off your device. First off, I really enjoyed this movie. I loved it. It delivered the high entertainment value you come to expect from a Marvel movie. And what really makes this movie work is that it separates itself from all the major continuity of the MCU. It gives us a contained story in order to further develop all the characters, and really has nothing to do with any of the other movies in the MCU. So if you haven't seen a lot of those other movies, it's okay. You'll still enjoy this movie a whole lot. Right off the bat, if you came to see Baby Groot, you will not be disappointed. And what's real fun is we get to see an interesting role reversal between him and Rocket in this movie. Whereas in the first movie, a big adult Groot was pretty much Rocket's protector for the entirety of that movie. Whereas in this one, since Groot is now a baby, Rocket's the bigger of the two. We get to see a great role reversal where Rocket is very protective over Baby Groot. Star-Lord and Gamora's blossoming romance turns into a little bit of a will they, won't they tension between the two for the majority of this movie, but it never really goes past anything other than that. Which actually is a pretty good thing, because I think the whole romantic tension angle and dynamic is way more entertaining, and it delivers some of the most humorous scenes throughout the entire film. Drax is featured a little bit more of a comedic role in this movie. His blunt meatheadedness kind of gives us some of the most humorous scenes and funniest moments in the entire movie. And the dynamic between him and the new character Mantis constantly delivered laughs. Featured more heavily in this one than in the first movie is Nebula, played by Karen Gillan. I loved Nebula's character development in this movie. We got to dive right into why she hates Gamora so much, and to hear how their father, Thanos, the big bad of the MCU, would pit her and Gamora against each other while they were training growing up, and Gamora would constantly win, prompting Thanos to cybernetically replace so many parts of Nebula. You start to understand why she harbors so much hate for both Gamora and her father Thanos. I thought it gave Nebula a whole lot more of an identity and opened up the possibilities for her character to be developed a little bit more so down the road. And we finally get to see Peter Quill's father, Ego, played by Kurt Russell. And for those of us that never really got into the comics, Ego the Living Planet is a literal planet with a face on it. Kind of cheesy, a little corny, but it's that kind of weirdness that fits right into James Gunn's quirky filmmaking style. I, for one, loved how James Gunn took this kind of corny character from the comics and made it his own, really giving that character a good cinematic boost. And by far, we got to see the best reverse aging CGI I've ever seen in a movie, when we get to see young Kurt Russell befriend and actually fall in love in the beginning of the movie with Peter's mother. We literally got to see a Snake Plissken / Jack Burton Kurt Russell in this movie. It was pretty wild. But the big reveal isn't that Ego the Living Planet is Peter Quill's father, but more so that Peter is just a pawn in Ego's scheme to remake the entire universe in his image. Because we come to find out that he needs the power of his own offspring in order to do that. We even come to find out that Ego impregnated thousands of women across the entire universe just to have Yondu deliver all those offspring to him, and he actually ends up murdering all of his offspring that doesn't inherit his celestial power. And even more of a shock was when we found out that Ego intentionally planted that tumor in Peter's mother's brain when he realized he was actually falling in love with her. I really loved how upon this reveal, Peter instantly retaliates against Ego. No hesitation, no dramatic pause, just complete and utter retaliation. Considering how much Peter did love his mother and how much his mother meant to him, it was the most genuine reaction that would have made the most sense. It was the only reaction we as an audience would have even bought. But the real scene stealer in this movie was Yondu, played by Michael Rooker. For someone who wasn't really featured too heavily in the first movie, we get to see a real path to redemption story for him, as we see how much he regrets the role he played in Ego's scheme all those years ago. He even delivered my personal favorite scene in the entire movie, when him, Rocket, and Groot are escaping that Ravager compound, and his telekinetic arrow is slaughtering all those Ravagers. It really made everything a whole lot more fun while we were hearing Jay and the Americans come a little bit closer playing in the background. His redemption arc comes full circle as he sacrifices himself to save Peter at the end, And what delivers for me the most emotional scene in this entire movie is when he is accepted back into the Ravager community, being given a true traditional Ravager funeral, which is really what he always wanted to begin with. Yondu establishes himself as Peter's real father figure when he delivers that great line, "Ego may be your father, but he ain't your daddy." It really gives his character a true identity, and gives us some of the most emotional scenes between him and Peter. And it's something that I didn't deliver in the first film, but really gave us some good emotional sequences in this film. And as much as the audience really established more of a connection with Yondu in this movie, his death, it was completely right for the way the story was going. It was appropriate, and it was probably the most emotional scene of the entire movie. Some of the things I wasn't crazy about, that I didn't like about this movie, even though it really didn't ruin the movie for me, I thought there was a little too much humor thrown at the audience, especially in the first act. It was hard to really stay engaged with some of the more genuinely emotional scenes because there was just so much humor surrounding it. The scene where Peter and Ego were playing catch with that ball of energy, it was making me laugh, even though I'm pretty sure it was not intentional. They didn't intend for that to happen. But just with all the humor, it was really hard to decipher what we should or shouldn't be laughing at. I wish we could have seen a little bit more hand-to-hand action sequences with Drax and Gamora and even Nebula. These characters, it had the potential to deliver some great potential hand-to-hand combat scenes, but it just seemed that Drax was relegated more as the comic relief. I really wish Nebula and Gamora had a little bit more of a role in that final fight scene, as opposed to them just trying to escape from that planet. They definitely could have had a little bit more of a hand in that final scene. Again, did not ruin the movie for me. None of these were red flags by any means. And as for the post-credits sequences, a teenage Groot scene and a scene where Kraglin is trying to use the telekinetic arrow, those were a whole lot of fun, but the real big reveal was seeing that now Adam Warlock, yes, Adam Warlock will be introduced into the MCU. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the character of Adam Warlock, he is essential to the Infinity Gauntlet story in the comics. And we may just get to see him in the second Infinity War movie that's coming up after this next Avengers movie, if all goes according to plan. Overall, I loved this movie. I would recommend it to anyone to go and see. It was a whole lot of fun, which really is all I could ask for going into this movie, or any comic book movie for that matter. And there you have it, my full spoiler review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm Erickson, and we'll see you next time.